our hands to cut off our tree, we should remember its daily prayers, that it is the constant and ever-ready shade protecting us from the rays of the sun, that it is the provider of the wood for our home, our table, and our boat, and of course it is the shell of our coffee. And more importantly, that it is also a gift from the Creator and a friend of man. From the State House of Assembly Complex, venue of today's occasion, Tunde Olaore, NTH and 7 News.
I doubt if it needs any further introduction. Would like to move on straight into the main the person of Chief A. Lashebikon to make his welcome address. Dr. S.L. Edu, member you all this evening to honor an illustrious son of Nigeria, a distinguished personality in the person of Chief Dr. S.L. Edu, member of the Federal Republic of the State, Sana Kolotedala, who has graciously accepted to be the chairman of this occasion. Thank you, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, amongst you tonight are many, many very valuable people, amongst who are our clients over the years. There have been many of them, but you're welcome, and we thank you all for your patronage, and for without you, I don't think we'll be here tonight dining and whining. We thank you for coming. Also, in Nigeria today, we have what they call general contractors or main contractor, and they all come in different names. We work with them all. But actually, as you know, we are services contractor, and we are usually sub to somebody else when we never stand on our own. And we're very, very lucky that over the years we have worked with one of the very, very best, or many of the very best contractors, general contractors, main contractors. A lot of them are here tonight, which I cannot mention them all. I know we do import ourselves, but also we do buy a lot for our projects. And many of them have thought it fit to congratulate the consultants, the engineers. We have worked with all of you over the years, the last 33 years, and we're very, very happy that you can be here tonight to rejoice with us for one of our illustrious sons is retiring. We're glad that you can come. We thank you for coming. You're welcome. All over the country, and the work must continue as usual. Well, we'd like to say that we're very grateful to them for coming, and we'd like to say also that we're happy that they're still with us, and we're grateful for all their contributions over the years. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this evening is a special occasion to say cheerio from the Board of Directors to our former chairman and member of the board, Chief S.L. Edu, Papa Slee, as we call him. Maybe he doesn't know it yet, but we normally refer to him as Papa Slee. If Papa had been a member of our staff, he would not only have received the 10 years award, the 15 years award, the 20 years award, and the over 30 years award. He has been on our board of directors for over those number of years, almost 33 years. And we're very happy for all his contribution over the years. He has served the ship very, very rigidly and very rightly. We have been very grateful to have worked with him on the board, in the staff, and with him I was going to do very well, considering that I had a lot of experience. But when I thought of the parties who were involved, he used the word purposely.
Having listened to Mrs. Olakunrin, I think she has presented my curriculum visa for the governor. If you read the papers today, they have told you all about ADELEC. But there's something missing there, because in the paper, they said it was originally, in those days, when only the British contractors monopolized Nigerian business, causing one of the biggest British contractors then invited Hayden, GH Hayden, to Nigeria to do some special job for them. During that period, they decided to stay in Nigeria. But there's something I learned from GH Hayden. Until that time, I was very, very ignorant about degree in Oxford and Cambridge. We had two directors of GH Hayden, and I went and saw them in England. They invited me to their club. The club is this Oxbridge, the Oxford Cambridge Club at Parliament. And then I wonder, how are you qualified to be a member? One went to Oxford, one went to Cambridge. I said, I thought it's only lawyers and doctors went to Oxford and Cambridge. I never know electrical engineer. Do go! I would like to pay a very, very high tribute today to one of the directors, Mrs. Olakunrin. She has been a tremendous help to us. Although my name is on the board as chairman, but she has been standing in for me for so many years. And she was very, very reluctant to resign. She said, I must continue, whether I come or not. And tonight, I would like to pay the tribute publicly that Mrs. Olakunrin is one of the dependable that we thank you very much for that. I will not like to stress on the somebody who is going to move the vote of thanks, but I cannot sit down without thanking the governor. It's not very usual for the governor to come to such occasion. But again, I think with my name connected and having come not from the same area alone, but as brother and brother, or as father to son. So I am very, very glad that I've come to grace this occasion.
Everyone know at times by with the judge rather they always try like
Mr. Ufos actually is a security officer who looks after my home. He joined serving at my residence and is still there over the years. Some have come, some have gone, but he's one of the most dedicated persons, and I'm very pleased to award him the 10 years service.
Sunday. Move forward.
Come on, sit my
that he has given him a haircut for almost 20 years. I don't know how true that is. That was from the papers. That was not from the horse's mouth.
It must be bald by now.
May I now call on Mr. Baseyo Ntriko. Mr. Baseyo Ntriko.
Assimilated all the intricacies of a computer. Today is an accounts assistant solely in charge of the office data input into our computer. Congratulations.
Please tell us your name.
The Chairman and Managing Director of HADMEC Limited, members of HADMEC Limited Board of Directors, my Lord, the Chief Judge of Lagos State, distinguished guests, distinguished ladies, distinguished gentlemen. I feel greatly honored to be invited by HADMEC Limited to be the chairman of this very well-deserved dinner in honor of Chief Dr. S.L. Edu, MFR, Doctor of Literature, honoris causa, who is retiring from the Board of Directors of HADMEC Limited after having served for about 32 years. A very distinguished service indeed, we will all agree. I, my family, and the government of Lagos State congratulate Chief Edu for his meritorious service. I don't want to steal the show, but I would like to say that the government of Lagos State had reason to be part of this occasion and to join in congratulating him because he served Lagos State well when I was a boy. I am told that HADMEC Limited, the name HADMEC Limited in the building services industry commands high respect, having been involved in many of the landmark projects before and since independence of Nigeria. They have worked with most of the best building contractors in the country. When I saw the list of the projects they have been involved in, I'm surprised at their modesty, that they have not brought out the drums tonight, or rattle their sabers, beat their chests, and shout "Hoorah!" as many times as they like. But having known their past chairman, Chief Dr. S.L. Edu, and their managing director and new chairman, Engineer Chief A.A. Lashe Bikon, for many years, I'm not totally surprised at their achievements and modesty. I can speak of the quality of the two gentlemen, and especially their dedication and selflessness to duty. And I'm sure these qualities have reflected in Hadmec Limited, who is celebrating its 33 years of official service in Nigeria. This makes them one of the oldest, if not the oldest, building and industrial services engineers and contractors in Nigeria. I'm particularly happy to be informed that Hadmec Limited have been involved in Lagos State government projects. Some have been completed in the past and some are continuing on sites now. I have no doubt of their wealth of experience in their field and hope that they will continue to train the young ones for the benefit of the entire country. Again, I would like to congratulate Chief Dr. S.L. Edu on his retirement from the Board of Directors of Hadmec Limited and wish him a happy and healthy retirement while wishing Hadmec Limited and its Board of Directors continued service and prosperous future. I thank you for listening.
Well, well. The governor has said it all. If I have 32 years experience in an industry, I'll make sure I take up front page every day. But they also say that modesty, I'll put it differently. Still waters run deep. I guess they've been
post-war international economic order was based on the Cold War-induced political relationship between the three main centers of non-socialist industrial power, the United States, Western Europe, and Japan. For their part, the socialist countries of Eastern Europe refused to join the Bretton Woods institutions and began proceeding instead to fashion their own exclusive economic organization. Where did all these leave the countries of Africa and the Third World? They remain an integral part of the Western system, although in a clearly subordinate position. Most of them were, in any case, still under Western colonial control in the early post-war years. Throughout the mid-1940s, the choices of imperfection that the post-war planners decried and addressed were primarily those which had precipitated the collapse of the Europe-centric international system in the interwar years and given rise to the Second World War. Today's such new world order is unique in history in the sense that it is an aftermath not of a shooting war, but a Cold War. That war also had victor and vanquished, although in an economic and ideological as opposed to a military sense. The victors of the Cold War are likely to continue to emphasize the promotion of in world politics without a corresponding insistence on the need for justice. They also are likely to favor an hierarchical system which preserves the prerogatives of the strong and at the expense of the weak, and this time without the safeguards earlier provided for the third world by the bipolarity of the Cold War. It is therefore up to us to ensure that the African agenda is adequately represented and protected in the fashioning of the new world order. Unlike the post-war era, wherein which African and third world countries were required to appraise the structure of a world order about which they had not been consulted and to which they were merely made subject, this time the voice of Africa must be heard and the African agenda must not be compromised. The agenda itself must derive from an Africa fully converted to the virtues of democracy and representative government. For only then can it be seen as driven not merely from African governments, but from African peoples. Today in Africa, our peoples are already clamoring for multi-party democratic system. As a part of the international community, Africa has not remained immune to the outbreak of the worldwide democratic fervor. Indeed, there is considerable evidence that democracy is taking firm root in Africa, with a number of countries progressing on the way to multi-party democratic rule. The transition to democracy in Africa will not be painless. While East-West approach might have seemingly reduced the level of international conflicts in Africa, because Africa is no longer a theater for the conduct of Cold War disputes by regional surrogates, it has actually heightened internal conflict. The practice of democracy in Africa is also likely to be conflict-prone. In providing for the existence of opposition to legitimate government, the democratic process necessarily assumes rivalry, competition, and conflict. The answer, however, is not another period of externally induced peace by the backing of preferred African leaders or of extra-African meddlesomeness in internal African conflict, but of internal political socialization in local conflict management procedures through the accumulation of homegrown experience. In short, African countries need to be left alone to sort out their own problems by themselves. Many of the 8 donor countries of the West are already serving notice that the litmus test of democracy would be applicable in their dealings with individual African states. However, there is need for caution here. The clamor for democracy in Africa by the West should not be allowed to provide fresh rationale for a new round of interventionism. Inevitably, the models of democratization in Africa will vary from country to country, as it does indeed in Europe and North America. Taking into account the differences in political culture, 6, long before the resurgence of democracy in Africa and before the collapse of socialism in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. As of today, we have held elections in the local and state government levels. At the federal level, we have also held elections into the Senate and House of Representatives. By the end of this year, there will be presidential elections, completing the transition from military to civil rule. The African position is that the logic of democracy cannot be confined within the borders of the individual states, but must of necessity also be applicable to the operation of international organizations. Thus, within the councils of the Non-Aligned Movement, the Organization of African Unity and the United Nations, we have repeatedly called for the democratization of international relations. A situation where the 5 allied victors of the Second World War remain more equal than the rest of the 167 member states of the United Nations, and where a group of 7 countries exclusively determine the rules and regulations of international economic relations. It's not democratic, but also inequitable and fair. The new order, if it is to attract international force supporting international participation of both the developed and the developing, as well as the permanent and non-permanent members of the United Nations, in the conceptualization and establishment of a new world order, can guarantee its legitimacy and viability. It is also time to take cognizance of the fact that the victors of the 1945 are no longer the only major actors in world affairs. Newly emerging states have appeared on the scene, while some major powers have experienced structural changes. Indeed, the vanquished of 1945 are now some of the most powerful economies in the world. New ideas and new realities have since come to shape our world. Clearly, we cannot remain shackled forever in the wisdoms and truths of the 1940s. Accordingly, the time is long overdue for the category of permanent membership of the United Nations to be enlarged to include emerging middle class of Africa, South Africa, and Latin America. The category of permanent membership should also be enlarged to increase membership of all regions of the world. The net effect of this is to ensure that the wisdom of all cultures and civilizations is reflected in the composition, deliberations, and decisions of the Security Council. Since the world is multicultural, the Security Council should also be multicultural. At the domestic level, it should also be emphasized that the widespread democratic and popular government in Africa implies respect for the human rights of the African citizenry. We cannot, in good conscience, continue to deride the denial of fundamental human rights to Africans and at the same time remain silent in the face of human rights abuses in independent black African states. Therefore, that violations of human rights should not continue to be shielded by the OAU principles of non-interference in the internal affairs of member states. In this regard, the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights in Banjul should be strengthened with its mandate widened to include the role of human rights watchdog for the continent. Apartheid, of course, remains a conscious and deliberate denial of the humanity of the black man. There can be no that the years of international pressure and the struggle of the oppressed people of South Africa have constrained the South African government seek the reform of this odious policy. However, apartheid cannot be reformed. It must be eradicated. While it is not possible to see the light at the end of the dark tunnel of apartheid, it is imperative that the international community should sustain its pressure until the goals of non-racial and democratic society are fully realized in South Africa. It is also incumbent upon the countries of black Africa, in particular, to ensure that the war against oppressive black minorities in South Africa is not being fought in order that the practice of black communal values should replace the more long-standing practice of black genocides by whites. That would be a complete negation of moral rectitude of the anti-apartheid struggle. International justice also implies that the peace dividend arising from the termination of the Cold War into increased economic transfers to Africa and other countries of the Third World. Moreover, the resolutions of major East-West conflicts now greater for North, South, and South. The international community has accepted the idea of new world order now more than ever in the terms of long-standing Third World and international economic in a greater need of international assistance than the continent of Africa. No continent is also more deserving of assistance. In the last few years, African countries have embarked upon structural adjustment programs designed to liberalize and modernize their economies. Through deregulation, we now acknowledge that the private and not the public sector should play the lead role in revitalizing our economies. However, our efforts have yet to elicit the requisite international support. There would appear to be insufficient international appreciation of the significant limitations posed by the context of challenging restructuring the African political economy, Africa's best efforts continue to be undermined by the negative effects of the workings of the World Trade and financial institutions. There can be little gain from the pains of structural adjustment without a conducive and an understanding world environment. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what then are we to learn from these changes? At the very least, we must appreciate why African development efforts have not received flags or popular support in the European countries of the North. Spectacular events like droughts and massive famine may engender the sympathies of charitable organizations. The catalysm of war-induced dislocations of refugees may exercise the pity of donor nations. The problem with these responses is that they are episodic and deal with the extremities of societal breakdown. The real question is, why is it so difficult for the normal anti-racialist human development of the African to receive normal attention in the international community? Is it a surprise that there is little gain from the pains of structural adjustment when a conducive and understanding world environment is absent? It is known that the nature and the size of Africa's external indebtedness is perhaps the greatest impediment to development in the region. It is also known that Africa's total debt exceeds 100% of its GNP and is more than 300% of its total export income. Africa's $25 billion debt service in 1990 alone was much greater than the total aid received by the continent in the previous year, which stood at 21 billion. This massive negative transfer of resources from Africa to the developed countries through debt service obligations ought properly to be seen as the explicit denial of Africa's democratic claims upon the West. What can African countries do to stem this bleeding of its developmental surpluses? What can we learn that is based upon the truth of our circumstances and that promises reversal of a condition that is structurally viable and viable? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that many of the statements we have made may have sounded a trifle deterministic or logical discussion of issues that tend to often axiomatic in flavor. But we must take solid grip of our destiny and equip ourselves as men and women of integrity. We must promote in Africa changes of the world of which we are a significant part. We must assume the task of providing original and fresh analysis of conditions. We must know the limits of international diplomacy. It is not our task as keynoters to provide you with recipes of solutions, but it is certainly our duty to ask the question that would enable us to come to grips with the issues detailed in canvassing for changes in the new world order. For we see before us and ahead of us persistence in the structure of the world, and we date the present outlines of that world back to the days of slavery. It is this long view of history that informs our strategic support for the call of reparation. We do not underestimate the difficulties such a campaign of necessity entails, but this is an acceptable cost and challenge if at the end the European and American world would recognize that a war greater than that of Berlin divides the human race into whites and blacks, making fellowship and mutuality of compassion extremely difficult at the level of global race relations. This campaign is especially apposite at the time South Africans are embarking on the unprecedented planning and implementation of programs for instituting non-racial democratic order in their society. We must finally organize our international politics and diplomacy with a clear understanding of what we are about to confront and be ready to press through and move outwards and forward in the world. We certainly demand changes of the colonial or Cold War world order, and we are willing to be self-reliant in fashioning our own constructs and designs for our future. But we will need to build upon answers that our ingathering would produce. I have spoken at length and conceptually For it is only in so doing will we be able to achieve perspectives upon our history and more from the position of external observers of world politics, the effective participants, observer of our struggle to enjoy the full benefits of democracy. We welcome you to this seminar, and it is our intention that you regard our address as a concept paper to be discussed or critiqued in your own deliberation. We are happy to find the opportunity to begin to exercise our minds on problems that contextualize our great endeavor to institute the foundation of a democratic, viable third world. I wish you all a rewarding seminar, and I thank you for your attention.
Clearer than we have had. Wonderful and memorable day. We thank you very much. We thank you among the brightest and the best scholars in international relations in Nigerian society. From those with the radical impulse and those with the conservative way. We're going to have a wonderful day this afternoon, presided over by two eminent citizens of Nigeria who have seen it all in international affairs. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, General Ikewaju, is going to preside one of the battles, and the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor 16 books on Nigerian foreign policy. Finally, Mr. President, and there insist on applying the golden rule to all nations.
With the least objective to achieve this goal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the
press.
Just spending time to welcome us and give us some time to deal with you for this very, very great person. As you know, is a very aspect of life, and we normally carry out this function of the Planning Commission annually at the top. It's also coming down to see what you have put in place and also know exactly what is being, how it is being carried on. This is why we don't limit our monitoring to federal agencies. We also extend monitoring to state agencies as well as local government agencies. Our 1 week stay in this state, we key projects that are put in place by the federal governments. We hope to see them and know exactly how they have performed in them. The lessons we learned from such monitoring we shall use that to improve on our system of plan preparation. So, with this brief, I will not get too much this time, only to say once
it's going to be different from what I usually do. In welcoming you, I have to do it specially. And so, the way it should normally do, I'm going to read out what the experts say I should tell you. Arachi, Mr. Obi, Mr. Yeson, and Mr. Labinjos. I hope this will continue. We will try in a brief moment have been doing it, you have cooperated with the state, but having said this, so let me go straight and communicate their views, which I endorse. If I do not endorse the views expressed, I won't read it. Well, rightly they asked me to say how greatly impressed I am by your visit and how pleased I am to welcome the Federal Monitoring Team to Lagos State on the commencement of a week-long tour of programs and projects in the state. As you are all aware, Lagos State occupies a strategic position in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The state is the economic, commercial, and industrial nerve center of the percent of the total industrial and commercial investment in the Federation. The population growth rate of the state ranks among the highest in the country, and indeed the entire continent. This has that roads have to be tarred, hospitals have to be built and equipped, potable water has to be provided in both urban and rural communities of the water is never enough. It leads me to wonder what the population of Lagos really is. We pump millions and millions of gallons of water. With the Adion water project having come on stream, we pump and pump. It's never enough. So I wonder whether we are really 5.6 million. Construction and maintenance of drainages to deflood the state. Construction of more classrooms to meet the ever-increasing primary and secondary schools population. Provision of buses and ferry services to ease the problem of commuters in the state, etc. All these have cost implications. Progression. The state government is well noted for high level of performance on project execution. Some of the projects that have been completed include the following. Phase 1 of Adion Water Supply Expansion Program. Phase 1 of the Lagos State Broadcasting House. Model colleges, Aperture and Direct, Third Mainland Bridge were funded in-house. Some were funded jointly with the federal government assistance, and others were executed through loan assistance guaranteed by the federal government. Over the years, the assistance of the federal government to the state is highly appreciated, especially in the areas of transportation, road construction, education, provision of pipe-on water, and stormwater drainage. Though the seat of the federal government has been shifted to Abuja, there is need for the federal government to maintain and increase the federal presence in the state. It would be appreciated if the federal government could further assist the state government in the areas of maintenance and rehabilitation of federal roads, hospitals, educational institutions, establishment of a duty-free export zone, the flooding program, as well as mass transit program. Once again, I welcome you and your team to Lagos State and equally wish you a successful monitoring exercise. As we go around, that you make very strong recommendations to the federal government on matters such as strict light on the third mainland bridge in order to guarantee safety of users. Night time is very dark there. There's a need, again talking about safety of life, for the federal This was made here, no doubt. Yes. Prince.